the verse effect. It's the verse effect. It's the verse effect. I write the lyrics to change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. It's the verse effect. It's just the verse effect. It's the verse effect. It's the verse effect. It's the verse effect. I write the lyrics to change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same.
Welcome to The Verse Effect, the podcast where we examine the lyrics of groundbreaking hip-hop and rap songs. My name is Camille.
And joined as always by me, Roderick. Before we get into this quick context check, this song comes out of mid-1990s New York, a period where hardcore rap was raw, confrontational, and intentionally unsettling. The language, imagery, and threats you'll hear were part of a stylistic tradition rooted in storytelling, survival narratives, and exaggeration, not endorsements or instructions.
We're examining these lyrics as cultural artifacts of their time, reflections of environment, pressure, and perspective. The goal here is understanding the era, the craft, and the impact, not excusing harm, but recognizing where the art came from and why it sounded the way it did. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, let's get into it. Shook Ones Part 2, that opening line. I got you stuck off the realness. We be the infamous, you heard of us, official Queensbridge murderers. I gotta say, if you grew up in the 90s like me, hearing this hit for the first time, it was like, boom, Mobb Deep, letting you know this is not just music, this is a whole world they're inviting you into. Camille, every time I play this record in my basement, it's that realness that jumps out first. What's wild is, it's not just talk. Realness back then, that wasn't about album sales or radio spins. It was something you earned. The fact that they call themselves infamous instead of famous, that flips the script, makes their notoriety more like a medal for surviving what Queensbridge had to throw at them. You feel that too?
Absolutely, Roderick. When Prodigy comes in with "We Be the Infamous," it's immediately both an assertion and a warning. He's drawing from a lineage of rappers who weren't just telling stories but documenting life as it happened in the biggest housing project in New York. It's a kind of lived-in authenticity you can't manufacture. And that context, the mid-90s, where gritty realism was currency in East Coast hip-hop, this is them saying, we're not here to sell a dream, we're giving you the rough, unvarnished truth. Mobb Deep positioned themselves next to Nas, Wu-Tang, those artists focused on real street reportage, not fantasy. And that sense of menace is right there from the jump.
Yeah, Queensbridge murderers. Those words are concrete. They aren't floating in some imaginary mob universe. They're naming the streets and painting them with all their danger and history. And it ain't just for show. For Mobb Deep, naming Queensbridge is like, it's almost as important as any hook or verse. It grounds the music. Sort of like how we talked about Outkast with Atlanta. You're putting yourself on the map, carving your territory in hip-hop, making your home a cornerstone rather than a backdrop.
Exactly. And there's something almost documentarian about how they do it, right? They're not fantasizing, they're reporting. That tone, that cold-eyed viewpoint, you feel the difference. There's a weight to it that shapes the entire track. Now, I want to talk about that line. Rock you in your face, stab your brain with your nose bone. I mean, wow, that's one of those lines that snaps your head back. The violence of it is so graphic, and yet there's a clinical coldness to how Prodigy says it. No yelling, no bravado, just matter of fact.
Man, that's the thing. Mobb Deep, they had a way of making even the ugliest realities feel almost mundane. By delivering it in that deadpan voice, Prodigy makes it even more terrifying. I mean, a lot of rappers back then went for wild, cartoonish threats, but this, it's like we know violence, it's part of daily life. That line, it's so vivid it almost feels anatomical, like some anatomy class gone wrong. And you notice how it's not about glamorizing, it's about the cost. There's danger everywhere. You slip for a second, that's it. That's why the line stays with you.
Right, and that kind of imagery was common in hardcore lyricism at the time. But Prodigy isn't performative. He's describing the reality of perpetual threat. It's not theater, it's almost sociological. How danger shapes every interaction, every decision. I mean, Roderick, we talked about this with Wu-Tang, how street language becomes a survival tool. Here, the language itself is weaponized. It sets the mood for the whole track, tells you that nothing's safe, not even your own body.
Mm-hmm. And that delivery, like you said, Camille, it's what made their style stand out. Everything's stripped of sensationalism, and that's what makes it stick long after the song's over. Makes you feel the environment, not just hear about it. Okay, maybe my favorite lines in the whole track. I'm only 19, but my mind is old. And when the things get for real, my warm heart turns cold. Man, that hits. Because there's the honesty. You're hearing a teenager admit he's already aged by what he's lived through. It's that survival logic again. You grow up fast, or you don't make it. I gotta admit, that line stuck with me long before I understood it.
And it's that emotional shift, youth hardening so quickly. The reality is compassion becomes risky. Being open, being soft, that gets you hurt. So, detachment is what lets you navigate that world. There's research in psychology, actually. Trauma, especially in adolescence, speeds up emotional aging. You see it a lot in marginalized communities, where the environment forces you to put aside childhood before you're ready.
Yeah, and in hip-hop especially, this was a shift. Instead of just talking about who's tougher or who gets money, Mobb Deep goes inside the mind, showing the cost of all that violence. There's this weariness, almost a sense of loss, that they didn't choose this maturity, you know? Reminds me of how Nas talked about never sleeping, because sleep is the cousin of death. We broke that down a couple episodes back. The psychology of always being on guard, always calculating.
Exactly, and it's more than just bravado. There's that undertone of sadness, almost resignation. I think that's partly why this song endures. It brings that internal conflict to the forefront. Hip-hop became more introspective, less about being invincible, more about what you lost along the way. We can't talk about Shook Ones without talking about the chorus. Ain't no such things as halfway crooks. I mean, that's the thesis statement right there. Either you're all in or you're exposed. This isn't a game you can play from the sidelines. You're either fully committed or you're vulnerable. The idea of a shook one, that was heavy 90s street slang. To be called shook was to be considered fake, unreliable, someone who talks but can't back it up when it gets real.
Exactly. In a way, it's like an early authenticity detector, right? It drew that hard line. Are you really about this life? Or just pretending for the music videos? There's no middle ground. And the way it's wrapped into the hook, it just branded itself onto hip-hop vocabulary. Makes me think about all those debates on authenticity, like we touched on in the Common episode. Street cred meant everything. If you were halfway, you were worse than the enemy because you endangered everyone. That hook, it's almost cruel in how unforgiving it is, but that's reality. At least, that's the code the song lives by.
And by calling out halfway crooks, they're also warning their peers. This is the price of credibility. There's no glamour in it. It's about survival, not showing off. Which fits with how Mobb Deep saw themselves. Not as heroes or villains, but as anti-fraud. They emphasize the consequences as much as the acts.
So let's shift to Havoc's verse. Sometimes I wonder, do I deserve to live? Or am I going to burn in hell for all the things I did? That's the gut punch moment of the song. For all the menace and bravado, here's Havoc, just plain, almost quiet, asking if any of it was worth it, or if he's condemned by it in the end.
That's such a rare moment of spiritual doubt, especially in hardcore rap at that time. You didn't often hear rappers drop the mask and look at themselves in the mirror, terrified by the possibility of damnation, or even just regret. To me, this line is where the song's tragedy crystallizes. It's not just about surviving violence, but surviving yourself. Carrying the weight of guilt, loss, and moral uncertainty. And you could see this trend growing later in East Coast rap, artists grappling with the price of what they'd done, not just the myth-making.
Yeah, and in a way, it predicts where hip-hop would go. This willingness to show those cracks in the armor, that existential dread. It made Mobb Deep stand out. Even now, you hear that influence in the way artists like Jay-Z or Kendrick Lamar build self-doubt and contradiction into their storytelling. That spiritual tension, It sticks with you longer than any punchline.
Totally. There's nothing triumphant about it. They give you both the cold front and the internal storm. That's hard to pull off, and it's so much a part of why Shook Ones gets cited as more than just a street anthem. It's almost a meditation on conscience. So, what's the impact? Shook Ones Part 2 is, by almost any measure, one of the greatest hip-hop records ever. The beat, just skeletal, haunting. The mood, relentless. And that ring of unfiltered realism, hip-hop kept reaching back to this record as a kind of touchstone, a way to check if you're still grounded in the truth. Lyricists, from Nas to Jay-Z to Kendrick Lamar, reference this song not just for the lines, but as a yardstick for authenticity. Even when the culture shifted to flashier, pop-oriented material, artists would measure themselves against the gravity of this song.
It's wild, Camille. Like, you can't talk New York hip-hop without mentioning Shook Ones. Mobb Deep didn't just cement their own legacy. They put Queensbridge deeper on the map, right next to all those other East Coast landmarks. And the crazy thing? The track keeps showing up. Movies, shows, college ciphers. Actually, do you remember you telling me something about how the instrumentals become like the ultimate test beat?
Oh, absolutely. During my undergrad days, we had this little unofficial rule on campus. If you were jumping in the cipher, someone would throw on the Shook Ones instrumental. It wasn't just about the nostalgia, it was a challenge. That song, if you could flow over that beat and not get lost, people listened. It almost turned into a rite of passage. The culture around the track means you have to bring your A game, lyrically and emotionally. Its legacy in real time, continuing to shape what we value in hip-hop: honesty, skill, and fearlessness.
That's so real. And it's wild how the track's lessons, authenticity, survival, the cost of both, keep finding new voices. As we saw in other episodes, hip-hop evolves, but these pillars remain. The darkness and the honesty, that's the Shook Ones effect.
Couldn't have said it better. We could probably talk about this track for hours, but that's going to do it for today's episode. Roderick, thank you. This one hits deep, no pun intended.
Always, Dr. Washington. And thanks to everyone listening. Keep those ciphers alive and keep it real, however you define that. We'll be back next time, diving into another track that changed the game.
Take care, everyone. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. See you next episode.
It's the verse effect, it's the verse effect. I write the lyrics that change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. I write the lyrics that change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. Nothing's ever gonna be the same.